2 months after leaving the medical station, Jake stood on the bridge of the Starbird watching his scanner screen with growing worry. They had been making good money running cargo between human colonies and alien trade posts thanks to Zara's knowledge of different cultures. But for the past 3 days, the same ship had been following them. "It's still there," Lisa said from the engineering station. "Same distance, same course. Whoever it is, they're good at staying hidden." Jake turned to Zara, who was working at the navigation console. Over the past 2 months, she had become an essential part of the crew. Her ability to read star charts and predict safe routes through dangerous space had saved them time and fuel. "On every trip, any idea who might be tracking us?" Jake asked. Zara's face was grim. "I have been thinking about this for 3 days. There is only one person who would follow us this far." "Grex," Pete said from the pilot's seat. "Yes," Zara said. "He has not forgotten about losing me at the auction. Vorthans do not forgive easily." Jake cursed under his breath. He had hoped they had seen the last of the reptilian slave trader. But Grex had resources and connections throughout this sector. If he wanted to find them, he probably could. "What does he want?" Jake asked. "Me," Zara said simply. "In Vorthan law, a contract that is broken illegally can be reclaimed by force. He believes I still belong to him." "But I freed you legally," Jake protested. "I filed all the paperwork." "Human law," Zara said. "But we are not in human space anymore. Out here, consortium law applies. And the consortium recognizes Vorten property claims." Jake felt his stomach drop. They were currently in the Meridian Nebula, a region of space controlled by the consortium. It was a loose alliance of species that valued profit over justice, and they had very different ideas about individual rights than humans did. "So what you're saying is that out here, Grex can legally take you back?" Lisa asked. "If he can prove his claim, yes," Zara said. "What about Keel?" Jake asked. Zara's face went pale. "Children follow their parents. If I am property, then so is she." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. Keel was playing in the common area, healthy and happy for the first time in her young life. The thought of that monster Grex getting his claws on her made Jake want to break something. "That's not going to happen," Jake said firmly. "You cannot fight the consortium," Zara said. "They have warships and enforcers throughout this sector." "Then we'll run," Jake said. "Get back to human space where our laws protect you." "Look at the scanner," Pete said quietly. Jake looked at his screen and felt his heart sink. 3 more ships had appeared on the edge of sensor range, moving to surround them. They were big ships, the kind the consortium used for enforcement actions. "They are cutting off our escape routes," Zara said. Grex must have called for help. The communication system crackled to life. "Human vessel Starbird, this is Consortium Enforcement Ship Dominator. You are ordered to stop your engines and prepare to be boarded." Jake looked at his crew. Pete's hands were tight on the controls. Lisa was checking weapon systems, even though they only had basic defensive guns. Zara was staring at the scanner, her face calm but her gills fluttering with stress. "Starbird, you have 30 seconds to comply or we will disable your ship," the voice continued. "What do we do?" Pete asked. Jake thought quickly. They could not outrun 4 ships, and they could not outfight them. But maybe they could outthink them. "Open a channel," Jake said. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the cargo vessel Starbird," Jake said into the communicator. "We are peaceful traders operating under proper licenses." "What is the nature of this enforcement action?" "Captain Morrison, you are harboring stolen property belonging to Grex of the Vorten Trade Guild. Surrender the Aquarii female and her offspring immediately." "The Aquarii you're referring to is a free person," Jake said. "I have legal documents proving her liberation." "Human documents have no validity in consortium space," the voice replied. "You have violated Vorthan property law and consortium trade regulations. Prepare to be boarded." Jake closed the channel and turned to his crew. "Ideas? We could try to make a run for it. Pete suggested. The nebula has dense gas clouds that might hide us. Too dangerous, Lisa said. The radiation in there would fry our shields in minutes. What about the mining station? Zara asked. Asteroid Base 7 is only 2 hours from here. It has neutral status under consortium law. Neutral how? Jake asked. It is owned by the Miners Guild, Zara explained. They have an agreement with the consortium. No enforcement actions are allowed in their territory without guild permission. Would they help us? Pete asked. Probably not, Zara said honestly. But they might give us time to think. Jake made his decision. Pete, set course for the mining station. Full speed. Starboard, you are ordered to stop immediately, the consortium voice said as they began to move. This is Morrison, Jake replied. We are proceeding to Asteroid Base 7 under merchant emergency protocols. We have sick crew members who need medical attention. It was not exactly a lie. Keel had been running a small fever that morning, and Zara was clearly stressed about the situation. You have 5 minutes to reach neutral territory, the voice said. After that, we will consider you to be resisting arrest. The next 5 minutes were the longest of Jake's life. The Starbird was fast for a cargo ship, but the consortium vessels were built for pursuit. They slowly gained ground as the ship raced through space toward the mining station. There it is, Pete said, pointing to a large asteroid that had been hollowed out and turned into a mining base. Are we going to make it? Jake asked. It's going to be close, Pete said. On the scanner, Jake could see the consortium ships getting closer. One of them was almost within weapons range. Attention approaching. Vessels, a new voice said over the communicator. You are entering Miners Guild territory. All hostile actions are prohibited under Consortium Trade Agreement 774. The consortium ships slowed down, but they did not stop. They took positions just outside the boundary of Guild space, clearly waiting for the Starbird to leave. Again, cargo vessel Starbird, this is Asteroid Base 7, the Guild controller said. Request permission to dock. Permission granted, Jake said with relief. Thank you. 20 minutes later, Jake sat in the mining station's small bar with his crew and Zara. Keel was sleeping in their rented room, finally calm after being frightened by all the excitement. So what now? Lisa asked. Those ships aren't going anywhere. I have been thinking, Zara said. There might be a way to settle this legally. How? Jake asked. Vorthan law allows for trial by combat, Zara said. If someone disputes a property claim, they can challenge the owner to single combat. Winner takes all. You want to fight Grex? Pete asked. He's twice your size. Not me, Zara said, looking at Jake. You, as my former legal owner, you have the right to represent me. Jake stared at her. You want me to fight a 7-foot reptile with claws and teeth? It is the only way, Zara said. Under Vorthan law, if you win, Grex's claim is permanently void. He can never come after us again. And if I lose? Then I go back to him, Zara said quietly. Not happening, Jake said immediately. Jake, listen to me, Zara said. Grex is strong, but he is also arrogant. He thinks humans are weak. That could be an advantage. Or it could get me killed, Jake pointed out. Maybe, Zara said. But if we do nothing, those ships will wait until we run out of supplies. Then we will have to leave, and they will capture us anyway. Jake looked around the table at his crew. Pete was shaking his head, clearly thinking the whole idea was crazy. Lisa looked worried but thoughtful. There is one more thing, Zara said. If you challenge him to combat, it has to be done publicly, with witnesses from multiple species. The story would spread throughout the sector. Why does that matter? Jake asked. Because right now, most species think humans are just another conquering race, Zara explained. But if you fight to protect an alien family, if you risk your life for strangers, it might change how they see your people. Jake thought about what she was saying. The idea terrified him, but he could see the logic. If he won, they would be free forever. If he lost, well, at least Pete and Lisa could escape while Grex was focused on reclaiming his property. I need to think about this, Jake said. That night, Jake stood in the mining station's observation deck, looking out at the consortium ships still waiting in the distance. He could see their running lights against the backdrop of stars, like predators, watching for their moment to strike. "You are considering it," Zara's voice came from behind him. Jake turned to see her approaching. "Am I that obvious?" "I have learned to read human expressions," Zara said. "When you are thinking about doing something dangerous and stupid, you get a particular look on your face." "Dangerous and stupid seems to be my specialty lately," Jake said. "It is also your strength," Zara said. "Most people would have walked away at the slave market. Most people would have kept me as property. Most people would not risk their life for someone else's freedom." "Most people are smarter than I am," Jake said. "Maybe," Zara said. "But most people do not change the galaxy." Jake looked at her. "You really think one fight can change how species see each other?" "I think one act of courage can inspire others to be brave," Zara said. "And I think the galaxy needs more examples of people choosing love over fear." 3 weeks later, Jake stood in the medical station's recovery room, watching Keel take her first steps since becoming sick. The little girl was still weak, but her skin had returned to a healthy blue color, and her gills were working perfectly. She held onto Zara's hand as she walked across the room, her large dark eyes bright with curiosity. "Mama, what is that?" Keel asked in her own language, pointing at a medical scanner. Zara translated for Jake. "She wants to know what the scanner does." "Tell her it helps doctors see inside people without hurting them," Jake said. Zara spoke to her daughter in rapid query. Keel listened carefully, then walked over to Jake and tugged on his pants leg. When he knelt down to her level, she spoke to him in carefully practiced standard. "Thank you for helping Mama and me," Keel said slowly. Jake felt his throat tighten. "You're welcome, little one." Keel smiled and hugged his neck. Jake was surprised by how natural it felt. He had never been around children much, but Keel was easy to like. She was smart and curious, and she had her mother's kind eyes. "She has been practicing standard with the other doctors," Zara explained. "She learns very quickly." "Just like her mother," Jake said. Over the past 3 weeks, Jake had watched Zara work at the medical station. She was amazing. She could speak at least 8 languages fluently, and she seemed to understand the customs of dozens of different species. Patients who had been difficult and angry became calm and cooperative after talking with her. But more than that, Jake had gotten to know her as a person. She was intelligent and funny, with a dry sense of humor that often caught him off guard. She had strong opinions about everything from food to politics, and she was not afraid to argue with him when she thought he was wrong. In the evenings, they would sit in the station's observation lounge and talk about their lives. Zara told him stories about her homeworld before the plague, about cities built underwater and schools where children learned to swim before they could walk. Jake shared stories about Earth and the human colonies, about the wars that had shaped his people and the peace they were still trying to build. "Your species is very young," Zara had said one night. "Most species take thousands of years to reach the stars. Humans did it in less than 1,000. Is that good or bad?" Jake had asked. "Different," Zara had replied. "Young species are often aggressive and impatient, but they are also passionate and brave. Sometimes that is exactly what the galaxy needs." Now, as Jake watched Keel play with a toy that one of the doctors had given her, he thought about what Zara had said. Humans were young and often made mistakes. But they also had something that many older species seemed to have lost. They cared about things, even when it was not logical or profitable to care. "Jake," Zara said, interrupting his thoughts, "I need to tell you something. Dr. Vess offered me a permanent job here." Jake felt his stomach drop. That's great. "Good opportunity." "It is," Zara agreed. "Good pay, safe work, excellent benefits, and Keel would have access to the best medical care in this sector. You should take it, Jake said, trying to sound enthusiastic. It's perfect for you. Zara looked at him with those large, dark eyes. I told her no. What? Why? Because I gave you my word, Zara said. I said I would help pay back the money you spent on us, and I said I would help your crew. Zara, you don't owe me anything, Jake said. I freed you, remember? You can make your own choices now. I know, Zara said. And I choose to keep my promises. Jake stared at her. You're willing to give up a good job to fly around in a beat-up cargo ship with 3 humans you barely know? Yes, Zara said simply. Why? Zara was quiet for a moment, watching Keel play. Do you know what soul tides are? She asked finally. No. It is something my people believe. We think that all living beings are connected by invisible currents, like tides in an ocean. When someone does something good, it creates ripples that spread out and touch other lives. Like karma? Jake asked. Similar, but more active, Zara explained. We believe that when you help someone, you become connected to them, and they become responsible for spreading that goodness to others. Jake thought about that. So because I helped you, you feel responsible for helping other people. Exactly, Zara said. But it is more than responsibility. It is ... joy. I was on that auction platform. I thought the universe was a cold, cruel place. But you showed me that it can also be warm and kind. Now I want to show other people the same thing. And you think you can do that by flying with us? I think I can do that anywhere, Zara said. But I would rather do it with friends. That afternoon, Jake met with Pete and Lisa in the station's cantina. They had been using the past 3 weeks to repair the Starbird and look for new cargo contracts. The ship was in better shape than it had been in months, and they had lined up a profitable run to the Titan colonies. So Zara's really coming with us? Lisa asked. Looks like it, Jake said. She turned down a permanent job here. That's crazy, Pete said. She's given up security for a life of uncertainty. Maybe, Jake said. Or maybe she understands something we don't. Like what? Like the fact that some things are more important than security. Pete shook his head. You're starting to sound like her. Is that bad? I don't know, Pete said. But it's definitely different. Over the next few days, Jake began to see what Pete meant. Having Zara and Keel around was changing the whole dynamic of the crew. The ship felt more like a home than just a workplace. Zara cooked meals that were better than anything they had eaten in months. Keel's laughter echoed through the corridors, making even the most routine tasks seem more enjoyable. But it was more than just domestic comfort. Zara's knowledge of alien cultures was already paying off. She had helped them negotiate a much better price for their cargo run to Titan, and she had identified several potential trade routes that Jake had never considered. The Andorian trade guilds had been looking for human-manufactured electronics, she told him over dinner. But they refused to deal with humans directly because of cultural misunderstandings. What kind of misunderstandings? Jake asked. Humans tend to be very direct in negotiations, Zara explained. They see this as aggressive. But if we approach them through the proper cultural channels, I think we could establish a very profitable relationship. How profitable? Lisa asked. Profitable. Enough to pay for ship upgrades and still have money left over, Zara said. Jake was impressed. How do you know all this? I was an ambassador for 10 years, Zara reminded him. I studied trade relationships as much as cultural ones. So, you're saying we could make more money with your help than we ever made on our own? Pete asked. I am saying we could make honest money helping people communicate with each other, Zara said. Money that comes from building bridges instead of taking advantage of ignorance. That night, Jake could not sleep. He walked to the observation deck and stood looking out at the stars. In a few days, they would leave the medical station and return to the life of cargo haulers. But somehow, everything felt different now. Cannot. Sleep either. Zara's voice came from behind him. Jake turned to see her approaching, carrying a steaming cup of something that smelled like flowers. Too much to think about, Jake said. The future is uncertain, Zara agreed. But that does not mean it will be bad. I keep wondering if I'm making the right choices, Jake said. First, I spent all our money buying your freedom. Now I'm taking you and Keel into a dangerous life. What if something happens to you? What if I can't protect you? What if you can? Zara countered. What if we protect each other? She handed him the cup. The liquid inside was warm and sweet, with a flavor he had never tasted before. What is this? Aquari tea, Zara said. It helps with worry and sleeplessness. They stood side by side, looking out at the stars. Jake felt some of his tension beginning to fade. Jake, Zara said, can I tell you something my mate used to say? Of course. He said that courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what is right even when you are afraid. Sounds like he was a wise man. He was, Zara said softly. He would have liked you. How can you be sure? Because he believed the same thing you believe. That sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose to be gentle. Jake thought about that. Is that what I did? Choose to be gentle? You chose to see me as a person instead of property, Zara said. You chose to help a stranger even when it cost you everything. You chose to free me even when you could have kept me as a slave. Yes, I think that is choosing to be gentle. And you think that's strength? I know it is, Zara said. Any species can build weapons and conquer worlds. But it takes real strength. To show mercy, it takes courage to choose love over fear. Jake sipped the Aquari tea and thought about what she had said. Your people sound wise. We had thousands of years to learn wisdom, Zara said. But we never learned what you humans know. Instinctively. What's that? How to hope against impossible odds. How to believe that tomorrow can be better than today, even when everything looks dark. And you think that's a good thing? I think it is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, Zara said. When you bought my freedom, you had no logical reason to believe it would work out well. You just hoped it would. And because you hoped, you acted. And because you acted, everything changed. For the better? The medical station at Proxima was nothing like Jake had expected. It was clean and bright, with doctors and nurses from at least a dozen different species working together. The xenobiology wing was especially impressive, with equipment designed to treat beings from across the galaxy. Jake carried Keel while Zara walked beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm for support. The little girl was still unconscious, but her breathing was stronger than it had been 2 days ago. The 4 fluids Jake had given her had helped, but she still needed proper medical care. The doctor who examined Keel was a tall, thin being with 4 arms and large compound eyes. Her name was Dr. Vess, and she belonged to a species called the Thraney. She was known throughout this sector for her skill in treating children of all species. Severe dehydration and malnutrition, Dr. Vess said after running her scanners over Keel's small body. Also bacterial infection in the respiratory system. Very common in young aquarii when they don't have access to proper water filtration. Can you help her? Jake asked. Yes, but it will take time, Dr. Vess said. She needs special nutrients and antibiotics designed for aquarii biology. Also hydration therapy with mineral-balanced water. Minimum 2 weeks of treatment. Jake felt his heart sink. 2 weeks at a medical station would cost more money than he had left. But he looked at Zara's face and knew he could not give up now. How much? He asked. For full treatment, including room and board, approximately 8,000 credits. Doctor. Vess said. Jake closed his eyes. He had maybe 300 credits left in his account. Even if he sold everything he owned, he could not come up with that much money. I understand if you cannot afford it, Dr. Vess said gently. But without treatment, the child will not survive more than a few days. Jake looked at Zara. She was staring at Keel with tears running down her face. She had already sold herself once to try to save her daughter. Now she was watching her child die anyway. There has to be another way, Jake said. Dr. Vest was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke in a lower voice. There might be. The medical station needs translators and cultural advisors. We have many patients from different species, and sometimes we cannot communicate properly with them. I can do that, Zara said quickly. I know many languages. I was cultural ambassador before. The work pays well, Dr. Vest continued. If you worked here while your daughter received treatment, you could earn enough to cover the costs. Jake felt relief flood through him. But then he realized there was still a problem. According to the legal documents he had signed, Zara was still his property. She could not work for herself. What about her contract? Jake asked. Contract? Dr. Vest looked confused. She's legally bound to me, Jake explained. I bought her contract at the slave market on Kepler Station. Dr. Vest's compound eyes focused on Jake with obvious disapproval. I see. Well, as her owner, you could hire her out to us. The payment will go to you, of course. Jake felt sick. He had been trying to help Zara, but the legal system still treated her like property. Even here, at a medical station dedicated to helping people, she was not seen as a free person. I'll think about it, Jake said. That night, Jake sat in his ship's common area with Pete and Lisa. They had been talking for hours about their situation. They had enough fuel to reach one more system, maybe two if they were careful. But they had no money for cargo, no contracts lined up, and no way to earn credits. We could take the job, Pete said. Hire Zara out to the medical station and use the money to get back on our feet. That's not right, Lisa said. She's not a piece of equipment we can rent out. Legally, she is, Pete pointed out. Jake bought her contract. That makes her his responsibility. I never wanted to own anyone, Jake said. I just wanted to help her. Then help her by letting her work, Pete said. She gets her daughter treated, and we get enough money to keep the ship running. Everyone wins. Jake knew Pete was right, but it still felt wrong. He had spent 5,000 credits to save Zara from slavery, only to end up being her owner himself. There was a soft knock on the door. Jake looked up to see Zara standing in the doorway. She had been sleeping in the medical bay next to Keel, but she looked wide awake now. May I speak with you? She asked. Of course, Jake said. Sit down. Zara sat carefully in the chair across from him. She had been eating regularly for the past 2 days, and her skin was beginning to look healthier. The cracks were healing, and her gills were moving normally again. I heard you talking, she said, about the work at medical station. You speak standard better than you first said, Jake observed. I was scared, Zara admitted. When you are property, sometimes it is better to seem less intelligent than you are. Jake felt another stab of guilt. She had been pretending to barely speak his language because she thought it would protect her. I want to take the job, Zara said. I know it means you would own my earnings, but I do not care. Keel needs the treatment. Zara, Jake said slowly, what if I told you that you could keep the money yourself? I do not understand. Jake took a deep breath. What if I freed you? Made you a legal person again instead of property? Zara stared at him. You would do that. I should have done it already, Jake said. I never wanted to own you in the first place. But then you would have no way to recover the money you spent, Zara said. 5,000 credits is very much money. I'll figure something out, Jake said. Pete and Lisa were both staring at him now. Pete shook his head. Jake, if you free her, we'll have nothing. No money, no cargo, no way to pay for fuel. Then we'll find another way, Jake said. There might be a solution, Zara said quietly. If you free me, I could work for the medical station and pay you back. Not as owner of the property, but as friend to friend. Jake looked at her. You would do that? You saved my life and Keel's life, Zara said. Of course I would pay you back. That could take years, Lisa pointed out. I know, Zara said. But I could also help you in other ways. I know many languages and customs. I could help you trade with other species, make better deals. Jake thought about it. It was true that he had trouble communicating with alien traders sometimes, and Zara had been a cultural ambassador. She probably knew more about interspecies trade than he did. What do you think? Jake asked Pete and Lisa. Pete was quiet for a long moment. It's risky, he said finally. But maybe that's not a bad thing. We've been playing it safe for too long, and look where it got us. I think it's the right thing to do, Lisa said. And I think Zara could really help us. Jake looked at Zara again. Are you sure about this? Once you're free, you can make your own choices. You could stay here at the medical station or go anywhere you want. I have been thinking about this, Zara said. My world is dead. My people are scattered across the galaxy. I have no home to return to. But here, with you and your crew, I feel like I might have found a new family. It won't be easy, Jake warned. This is a hard life. Long trips, dangerous places, not much money. It will be better than slavery, Zara said simply. Jake stood up and walked to his personal storage locker. He pulled out a small device that looked like a tablet computer. It was a legal document processor, something every ship captain needed for filing cargo manifests and trade agreements. What are you doing? Pete asked. Freeing her, Jake said. He activated the device and began filling out the forms. If I'm going to do this, I might as well do it right. It took him 20 minutes to complete all the paperwork. When he was done, he showed the screen to Zara. This document cancels your contract and declares you a free person, Jake said. All I need is your signature. Zara looked at the screen, then at Jake. You are certain. I'm certain. She pressed her thumb to the signature pad. The device beeped and displayed a confirmation message. Zara was officially free. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Jake said. We still need to figure out how to pay for Keel's treatment. I will speak to Dr. Vest tomorrow, Zara said. As a free person, I can negotiate my own contract. The next morning, Jake watched as Zara walked into the medical station with her head held high. She looked different now. More confident. More like the ambassador she had once been. Dr. Vest was impressed with Zara's language skills and cultural knowledge. Within an hour, they had worked out a deal. Zara would work as a translator and cultural advisor for 6 months. In return, the medical station would provide free treatment for Keel and pay Zara enough to cover her living expenses and start paying back Jake. She drives a hard bargain, Dr. Vest told Jake later. Much better negotiator than I expected. That evening, Jake sat beside Keel's bed in the medical bay. The little girl was still unconscious, but her color was much better. Dr. Vest said she should wake up within a few days. Zara entered the room carrying a tray of food. She had been working in the translation department all day, helping doctors communicate with patients who spoke different languages. How did it go? Jake asked. Good, Zara said. I helped 3 families today. One from the Centauri colonies, one from the Vega system, and one from a species I had never met before, the Zephyrians. Very interesting people. She sat down beside Jake and looked at her daughter. Dr. Vest says Keel will make full recovery. That's wonderful, Jake said. I have been thinking, Zara said, about what you said yesterday, about finding a new family. What about it? The walk to Jake's ship felt like it took forever. The woman moved slowly, each step seeming to take great effort. The child in her arms had not moved or made a sound since they left the auction platform. Jake tried not to think about what that might mean. Other people in the station stared at them as they passed. Some looked curious, others disgusted. A few humans shook their heads like Jake had done something stupid. Maybe he had. He was not sure anymore. The woman stumbled, and Jake caught her arm to steady her. She was lighter than he expected, like. Her bones were hollow. Her skin felt even colder than before. What's your name? Jake asked as they walked. Zara, she whispered. Child is Keel. How old is he? She, Zara corrected gently, Keel is female. She has ... cycles. In your words, maybe 3 years. Jake nodded. He knew very little about quarry biology, but 3 years old was just a baby by any standard. And the child looked even smaller than that. They reached the docking bay where Jake's ship was berthed. The Starbird was not much to look at. It was an old cargo hauler that had seen better days. The hull was dented and scarred from years of use, and the paint was peeling in several places. But it was home, and more importantly, it was safe. Jake's crew was waiting for him at the bottom of the loading ramp. Pete Davis, his oldest friend and co-pilot, was a big man with graying hair and kind eyes. He had been flying with Jake for 2 years, ever since Jake bought the ship. Lisa Carter, their engineer, was younger and smaller, but she could fix anything that broke. She had joined them 6 months ago when her previous ship was destroyed by pirates. Both of them stared as Jake approached with Zara and the child. Jake, Pete said slowly, "What did you do?" "I bought her," Jake said simply. "You bought her?" Lisa repeated. "Like, actually bought her? A person?" "It's complicated," Jake said. "Can we talk about this inside?" Pete and Lisa exchanged glances, but they followed Jake up the ramp into the ship. Zara walked behind them, her large eyes taking in everything. Jake wondered what she was thinking. Was she afraid? Hopeful? Planning to escape? The inside of the day. Starbird was as worn as the outside, but it was clean and well maintained. Jake led them to the small common area where the crew ate their meals and relaxed during long trips. "Sit," Jake said, gesturing to one of the chairs. Zara hesitated, then sat carefully, still holding Keel close to her chest. "Pete, Lisa, this is Zara," Jake said. "And this is her daughter, Keel. They're going to be traveling with us for a while." "Traveling with us?" Pete asked. "Jake, what's going on?" Jake sat down across from Zara. She needed help. "I gave it to her. That's all." "You spent 5,000 credits," Lisa said. "I heard the whole station talking about it." "That's more money than we've made in the last 3 months. I know what I spent," Jake said. "And now what?" Pete asked. "What are you planning to do with them?" Jake looked at Zara. She was watching the conversation with obvious fear, probably waiting to learn what her new owner expected from her. The thought made Jake feel sick. "First, we're going to get medical help for the child," Jake said. "Then we're going to figure out the rest." "Medical help costs money," Lisa pointed out. "Money we don't have anymore." "We'll figure it out," Jake said firmly. He stood up and walked to the ship's small medical bay. It was not much, just a basic first aid station with some emergency supplies. But it was better than nothing. "Zara," he called, "can you bring Keel here?" Zara rose slowly and followed him. The medical bay was tiny, barely big enough for 2 people. Jake gestured to the small examination table. "Can you put her down here?" "I want to take a look at her." Zara hesitated. "You are a doctor?" "No," Jake admitted, "but I know some basic first aid. And I have medical scanners." Zara carefully placed Keel on the table. The little girl was so still that Jake had to look closely to see her breathing. Her skin had turned an even darker shade of gray, and her gills were barely moving. Jake activated the medical scanner and ran it over Keel's small body. The device was designed for humans, but it could detect basic life signs in most species. What it showed made Jake's heart sink. "She's dehydrated," Jake said. "Badly, and her oxygen levels are dangerously low." "I know," Zara said quietly. "She has been sick for many days." "I have no credits for medicine." "What kind of medicine does she need?" "Aquari children need special nutrients," Zara explained, "and clean water with correct minerals. Also medicine for lung infection. Very expensive." Jake thought for a moment. The ship had a water recycling system, but it was designed for humans. The minerals would be all wrong for an aquari child, and he had no idea where to get the medicine she needed. "There's a medical station 2 days from here," Jake said. "They have xenobiology specialists, people who know about different species." "You?" Will take us there? Zara asked, and Jake heard the desperate hope in her voice. Yes, Jake said. But first, let's see what we can do here. He opened the medical supply cabinet and pulled out a small IV bag filled with basic nutrients. It was designed for humans, but it might help keep Keel alive until they could get proper treatment. This might help, Jake said, showing Zara the bag. It's not made for a quarry, but it has water and basic nutrients. Zara nodded eagerly. Jake carefully inserted the 4-needle into a vein in Keel's tiny arm. The little girl did not even react, which worried him. But within a few minutes, her breathing seemed to become a little easier. Thank you, Zara whispered. Jake looked at her closely for the first time since they had boarded the ship. Her skin was still dry and cracked, and her gills were moving irregularly. She needed help too. What about you? Jake asked. When's the last time you ate? Zara shrugged. Few days, maybe more. I gave my food to Keel. You're going to make yourself sick, Jake said, and then you won't be able to help her. He left the medical bay and went to the small kitchen area. Pete and Lisa were still sitting at the table, talking quietly. They stopped when they saw him. How is she? Pete asked. Bad, Jake said honestly. She needs medicine we don't have in treatment. We can't give her. I'm going to take them to the medical station at Proxima. That's going to cost money too, Lisa said. I know, Jake said, but I can't just let her die. He opened the food storage and looked at what they had. Most of it was processed human food, but there were some basic protein bars and vitamin supplements. He also found a container of water purification tablets. Jake prepared a simple meal of protein bars and clean water, then took it back to the medical bay. Zara was sitting beside the table, holding Keel's hand. You need to eat, Jake said, offering her the food. Zara looked at the protein bars suspiciously. This is human food? It's safe, Jake said. Basic proteins and nutrients. Not great, but it will keep you alive. Zara took a small bite, chewed carefully, then nodded. Not bad, she said. And for the first time, Jake saw something that might have been a smile. As she ate, Jake noticed her skin begin to look a little better. The cracks seemed less deep, and her gills were moving more regularly. Zara, Jake said, I need to ask you something. What happened to your people? Why were you at the slave market? Zara's face became sad. My world. There was sickness. Many died. The ones who lived had no food, no medicine. I am scholar, not fighter or trader. I have no skills that make money. You're a scholar? Jake asked. What did you study? I studied other species, Zara said. Languages, customs, trade. I was ambassador to your people once, before sickness came. Jake felt even worse about finding her at the slave market. This was not some random refugee. This was someone who had spent her life building bridges between species. I sold myself to buy medicine for Keel, Zara continued. I thought maybe I could work for a few years, send money home. But Keel got sicker. I used all money for medicine, but it was not enough. And if I hadn't bought your contract? Zara's eyes grew dark. The Vorthen would have taken me to mines. I would have died there. Keel would have died alone in refugee camp. Jake sat down heavily. He had not just bought a slave. He had saved 2 lives. But now what was he supposed to do with them? Zara, he said carefully, I want you to know something. I didn't buy you to be a slave. I bought you to get you away from Grex. Zara looked confused. But I am property now. Your property. No, Jake said firmly. You're not property. You're a person, and persons should be free. I do not understand, Zara said. Jake sighed. How could he explain human concepts of freedom and dignity to someone who had just sold herself to save her child? Where I come from, Jake said, we believe that no one should own another person. What I did back there, buying your contract, that was just paperwork. It doesn't make you my slave. Then what am I? Zara asked. Jake thought about it. You're someone who needs help. And I'm someone who's going to help you. That's all. Zara stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked down at Keel, who was still breathing quietly on the medical table. Why? She asked finally. Why what? Why would you help us? You do not know us. We are not your species. We have nothing to give you. Jake was quiet for a moment. How could he explain that he had lost his own family to raiders 5 years ago? That he knew what it felt like to be helpless while people you loved were in danger? That sometimes you had to choose between doing what was smart and doing what was right? Because it's the right thing to do, he said finally. Zara looked at him with those large dark eyes. Your people are strange. The air on Kepler Station smelled like rust and unwashed bodies. Jake Morrison pulled his jacket tighter as he walked through the crowded marketplace. The station sat on the edge of human space, where traders from dozens of worlds came to buy and sell everything imaginable. Most of it was legal. Some of it was not. Jake had been coming to this station for 3 years, ever since he started running cargo between the outer colonies. He knew the sounds and smells by now. The hiss of alien languages mixing with human speech. The sharp scent of exotic spices from distant worlds. The metallic tan of recycled air that had been breathed by too many different species. But today something was different. There was a crowd gathered near the far end of the market, in the section where Jake usually avoided going. That was where the slave traders did their business. It was legal here, technically. The consortium that ran this part of space allowed it, as long as the paperwork was in order. Jake told himself to keep walking. He had his own problems to worry about. His ship needed repairs, and he barely had enough credits to pay for fuel. The last thing he needed was to get involved in someone else's troubles. But his feet stopped moving anyway. Through the crowd, he could see a tall, thin figure standing on a small platform. It was clearly not human. The being had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the station's artificial light. Gills fluttered weakly on the sides of its neck, and its large dark eyes looked exhausted. Jake realized it was female, and she was holding something small against her chest. A child. She was holding a child. Jake pushed through the crowd to get a better look. The woman belonged to a species he had heard about but never seen before. The Aquari, he thought they were called. They came from water worlds and were supposed to be peaceful traders and scholars. But this one looked nothing like the proud beings he had heard described. Her skin was dry and cracked in places. Her gills were barely moving, which meant she was having trouble breathing. The scales along her arms had lost their shine and looked dull and lifeless. She was clearly sick or starving or both. The child in her arms was even worse. It was tiny, probably no bigger than a human baby, but Jake could see it was struggling to breathe. Its small gills were fluttering rapidly, and its skin had a gray tint that looked very wrong. What am I bid for this fine specimen? The voice belonged to a short, fat trader with greasy hair and gold teeth. Jake recognized him. His name was Becker, and he specialized in what he called exotic merchandise. She's a quarry, Becker continued, gesturing at the woman. Very rare in this sector. Excellent for underwater work or any job requiring fine motor skills. And look at these gills. Perfect for working in low-oxygen environments. Jake felt sick. Becker was talking about her like she was a piece of equipment. I'll start the bidding at 500 credits, Becker announced. A few voices called out bids, but Jake was not listening. He was watching the woman's face. She was trying to stay calm, but he could see the fear in her large dark eyes. She whispered something to the child in her arms, and Jake did not need to understand the language to know what she was saying. She was saying goodbye. 800. Called out a voice from the back of the crowd. Jake turned to see who had spoken. It was a Vorthan, one of the reptilian species that controlled much of the mining operations in this sector. This one was bigger than most, with scars covering his scaled face and arms that looked like tree trunks. Grex has bid 800. Becker said with a greedy smile. Do I hear 900? Jake knew about Grex. Everyone in this part of space did. He ran the worst mining operations in the sector, places where workers went in and never came out. If the aquarium woman ended up with him, she would be dead within a year. 1,000, someone else called out. 1,200, Grex replied without hesitation. Jake watched the woman's face as the bidding continued. She was not looking at the crowd anymore. She was looking down at her child, memorizing every detail of its face. Her lips were moving in what might have been a prayer, or a lullaby, or both. The child made a small sound like a kitten mewing. It was trying to breathe but clearly struggling. The woman's eyes filled with tears that looked just like human tears, except they had a slight blue tint. 1,500 to Grex, Becker announced. Going once, going twice. Jake found himself pushing through the crowd toward the platform. He did not know what he was doing. He just knew he could not watch this happen. 3,000, he heard himself say. The crowd went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him. Becker's eyes went wide with surprise and greed. Did you say 3,000, human? Becker asked. I said 3,000, Jake replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Grex snarled and turned to face him. You dare bid against me, human? Jake met the Vorthan's gaze. Grex was twice his size and could probably break him in half without trying. But Jake had been in enough fights to know that backing down now would only make things worse. It's an open auction, Jake said. Anyone can bid. 3,500, Grex growled. Jake thought about the credits in his account. He had been saving for months to buy better equipment for his ship. If he spent it all here, he would barely have enough left to buy fuel for the trip home. He looked at the woman again. She was staring at him now, and he could see the desperate hope in her eyes. She did not know who he was or what he planned to do with her, but she knew that anyone would be better than Grex. 5,000, Jake said. The crowd gasped. That was more money than most of them saw in a year. Grex's eyes narrowed. You cannot possibly have that much, human. Jake pulled out his credit chip and held it up. Scanner says I do. Becker quickly ran the chip through his scanner. His eyes lit up when he saw the total. 5,000 credits confirmed, he announced. Do I hear 6,000? Grex looked at Jake for a long moment. Then he looked at the woman and the child. Jake could see him calculating whether it was worth spending more money on someone who might not even survive the trip to his mines. She is yours, human, Grex said finally, but remember this day. We will meet again. The Vorthan pushed through the crowd and disappeared into the station's maze of corridors. Jake barely noticed. He was too busy staring at what he had just done. Sold to the human for 5,000 credits, Becker announced happily. Pleasure doing business with you, Captain Morrison. Jake transferred the credits and watched his account balance drop to almost nothing. Then he climbed onto the platform where the woman was waiting. Up close, she was even more obviously sick than he had thought. Her breathing was shallow and labored, and he could see she was barely staying on her feet. The child in her arms was unconscious now, its small chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. My name is Jake, he said quietly. I'm going to help you. The woman looked at him with confusion and fear. She said something in her own language, but Jake did not understand. Do you speak standard? He asked. She nodded slowly. Little bit, she whispered. Her voice was like water flowing over rocks. My child ... needs medicine. Please. I know, Jake said. We'll get medicine. But first, we need to get you both somewhere safe. He gently took her on to help her down from the platform. She flinched at first, then allowed him to guide her. Her skin felt cold and dry, like touching a snake that had been left in the sun. Too long. As they walked through the crowd, Jake could hear people whispering. Some were calling him crazy. Others were wondering what he planned to do with an alien slave. A few were making jokes about humans and their strange habits. Jake ignored them all. He had made his choice, and now he had to live with it. But as he looked down at the woman struggling to carry her dying child, he knew he had done the right thing, even if he had no idea what he was going to do next.